Hello everybody, Noah here with Learn Meta Analysis, and I want to show you this really cool tool one of my colleagues just told me about called NotebookLM from Google. Now, this is one of their experimental things that they're working on, and essentially what it is it can help you chat with papers and things like that. And you've probably seen this before through other interfaces, but this one I've found to be pretty unique, at least to me. And I want to tell you about a way that I think it's going to be really interesting to use. So, one of the questions I always ask myself as I'm finishing up a journal paper that I'm planning to submit or a grant proposal or something is I'm always wondering, did I get my point across? Right? So a lot of times when we write, we find that, or at least I find that I think I made my point really well, and then you get something from a reviewer, and they're like, "Oh, I don't really understand this particular part of it." So that's something that's really interesting to me, and I've always kind of questioned: how do you fully separate yourself from the paper that you yourself have written? And so when my friend showed me this tool, I was like, oh, this would be really cool to see what it actually thinks of my paper. So I know there's lots of different large language models and interfaces that can help you do this, but I want to show you one of the kind of unique things that I found about this one in particular. So I'm going to go into a paper. I've already actually uploaded it here, and yes, you can chat with your paper down here, but when you first upload your paper, it's really easy. It's going to prompt you to do so. You can see I've already got it uploaded here. So there's two different features that I want to show you that I found really kind of cool and unique so far. So the first of them is actually what they call a briefing document. So to get the briefing document, you click on Notebook Guide, and then here you can click Briefing Doc. So after you upload your file, this is actually going to come up a screen just like this, like when you upload it for the first time, and it's going to tell you a summary. Now, I thought this was interesting because I kind of expected it to just tell me what the abstract said, but it actually gives me a little bit more information than what was in the abstract. And so far, I experimented with this quite a bit yesterday with asking questions about the paper to see if it could help me identify details of the paper correctly, and it did. And one of the things I thought was really kind of cool was it actually showed me where in the paper this came from. So let me show you an example here. I could be like, how many groups were in the experiment? So I'll ask it this about the paper, and it's going to take a minute to think. Okay, so one of the things I really liked about this tool, and it's something I also really like about the tool Perplexity. I don't know, I haven't made a video about Perplexity yet, but if you haven't used that tool, I find it really helpful. I use it almost as like a search engine. One of the things I really like about it is it gives you the citation for where it actually found that information. And in this case, this will actually give you the citation from in the paper so you can see in the text where it came from. So here, when I'm asking about the control groups, it tells me right here and it highlights participants randomly assigned either control group 33, which is what it said, or the experimental group of 36, which is exactly what it said. And then for the details, it shows you where it got that information as well. So that's something that I always like about these new AI tools is they're actually telling you where in your paper, where on the internet this information is coming from. So that was pretty cool how you can ask questions about the paper and actually get responses that it can link you back to where it came from. Now, the next thing that I wanted to show you is this briefing document. So I already generated mine, but if you haven't, you can just click it and it'll come up here as a note. So it'll open up kind of like this on the screen. And what I liked about this, as I'm writing papers, is it tells you the main themes, it tells you key ideas, key findings, it gives you a couple of quotes that it thought was important. For my paper, we have implications for theory and practice, future research directions. So if you think about it, these are the things that in many cases we want to get across to readers. So for me, this was interesting because I hadn't read this paper in years. This was a 2017 paper. And so I found this a great way to just review what I had actually done and what I found in that paper. And so as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, maybe I'm going to upload some of my papers that I'm working on and see what the takeaway points are that they actually come up with from this. So I just thought this was super cool. But there is one other feature that I haven't seen anywhere else yet, okay? So let me show you this other feature. It is by far, to me, the coolest thing I've seen yet. So over here, if you go to audio overview, you can generate a conversation. And it's just like a podcast. So I'm going to switch over to this. And I'm going to hit load here. And what this will do is it'll take a few minutes to load. And honestly, what I did is I loaded that. Oh, you can see it came up much faster, perhaps because I had already done it earlier. But what it's going to do is it's going to make it so that it has, in this case, it had two people talking back and forth. And they talked about the paper using facts from the paper and also gave examples that were related but not necessarily from the paper itself. It's pretty cool. I'm going to play a really quick little example for you here.
Ever just spend like an hour on one of those learning platforms.
Right.
And the most exciting thing was that like 5 second auto playing motivational video.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Like, come on. It always makes me think about those virtual guides, those pedagogical agents that are supposed to like make learning more engaging. Like,
Right.
are those really the future of education? Or are they just like a really high budget version of that annoying clippy thing asking if I need to write a letter?
It is interesting how often we see that in educational technology. Like the idea is great,
Yeah.
revolutionize learning, but it's often paired with all these like flashy interfaces and stuff, and it doesn't actually do anything for learning outcomes.
Right.
And pedagogical agents are a great example of that.
Okay, so this was a really interesting to me kind of tool because it was a much more engaging way to hear about what I said in the paper. And so they used some of the arguments that I used in the paper. They gave some of the examples I gave in the paper. They gave some examples from outside of the paper. But what I think was most impactful for this is I am not the kind of person who can create a podcast like this in an engaging way, right? You guys have heard my videos. I'm doing, basically voiceover screen record. I'm not two people. I'm just one dude. And I can't have this sort of interactive conversation. So I'm not saying this is going to be right every time, right? I've literally tested this with my one paper and I wanted to share it because I just thought it was really cool. And it was kind of interesting to hear how the AI was talking about my paper. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to use this particular aspect yet of the summary. But it was interesting to me just hearing how AI is thinking about my paper, and it helped me realize what areas I think I did well in that paper and what areas where honestly I probably could have changed my argument a little bit or made my argument a little bit more effective. And that to me is what the real value of this tool is as an academic researcher right now. So if you want to pull facts out of a paper, yeah, this is cool. It can help you do it. And you can see where it's getting that information. So, always check it and make sure it's accurate, obviously, because it's a large language model. But what I liked about this was it gives you the link to where it got that information. But what I thought was really interesting for me is I want to think about this like I'm writing a paper. None of my friends have looked at it yet. Is this actually getting my point across? And I think this is a tool that I might use into the future to find out, at least on a preliminary format, am I getting my point across? So I hope you guys find this interesting. Please let me know what you think about this tool in the comments. I'm sure there's other ones out there that are like it. This is just one I happened to be shown this week, and I've had a lot of fun playing with it. Even though I've only uploaded the one article, I've asked this thing probably 20 or 30, actually more than that because I used a different prompt that I had. I probably asked this thing like 50 different questions about my paper. But that said, you guys should check this out. If you're bored and you're like really wanting to know, hey, what does AI think of my paper? This might be a fun tool to play with to see what you find. So that said, I'm going to stop rambling here and honestly upload a few more papers and see what it thinks of them just because it's kind of a fun tool to play with. And I kind of want to listen to a few more of these podcasts. So, all right. So that said, I'm going to stop rambling. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.